Hey everybody, welcome back to the Junkyard Dog Report. Great game yesterday against the Heat. We're following it up tonight with a back-to-back that starts in an hour and 10 minutes, so I'm cutting this pretty close here. But busy day. USA tied Wales, so that was kind of rough. But the Cavs won by 26 yesterday, and that's what we're here to talk about. So let's focus on that. Now, I'm just going to do what I normally do, go through my notes, go through the game quarter by quarter. So let's get into it. I started off by talking about in my notes that Lamar was still starting yesterday. Now, I have no problems with this. I love Lamar. That's my guy. I've said it multiple times here. That's the quintessential junkyard dog. And the only reason I include that in my notes is because last game he was minus 15, and that's notable because he was minus 8 in this game last night. But I don't think that's too much of a big deal because he brings the effort and intensity defensively. He knows when to pick his spots offensively. He's always engaged. So I don't think the plus minus is a big deal. I think it's just him trying to find his rhythm with the big four. It's a tough group to play with when you're just trying to find your spots and you're not as offensively dominant as any of them. But that's fine. I mean, Lamar will find his way. He's a grinder. That's why I call him the quintessential junkyard dog. So he'll figure it out. But the first quarter was definitely frustrating to start with. We had a lot of bad and silly turnovers to start off the game, but I think JB put it best because he are on pace to run the most zone plays in NBA history since the stat started being recorded, I believe in 2008. But here it is. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Here's not what it is. I'm sorry about that. I just got... here it is. Initially, it's almost like a shock. And, you can walk through it in practice and all that stuff. But until you get out there on the floor, because they do different things, right? They put their small guys like Kyle Lowry low, put bigger guys up top. So, it's unique in itself. Although it looks like a basic 2-3. But, again, it just takes some time. And our guys, I thought, did a great job of figuring it out. And that was him, as I was just saying, talking about how the team struggled early against the Heat 2-3 zone. But, they got it going. At the end of the quarter, they finished on a 9-2 run. They ended up beating the Heat by 1 in that quarter, 28-27. So I liked the end of that quarter. The start of that quarter, I could have done without. But it was a great learning experience because you think about it, this Heat team is a good team, a well-coached team, and they play hard. So this is a team that if we do make it to the postseason, we might run into again. And to get this valuable experience of how to take on this zone without Jimmy Butler in, I think it'll only help with the confidence of this team when Jimmy Butler is back. Even though he's as good as he is, I think he's one of the best players in the NBA, the effect he has on that team just being on the floor. And even with that huge laundry list of guys out, it doesn't matter because that team plays hard every night. I mean, if you look at Kyle Lowry's stat line in the game before they played us, he played 51 minutes against the Wizards. That was crazy to see that stat line from him. He had over 15 rebounds. So I definitely like how this team figured it out at the end of that first. So let's go to the second quarter. I really like how Isaac Okoro was playing to start the game. I feel like he was a guy who helped us out a lot because he matched up well with how the Heat play. Because the way the Heat plays with a lot of pace, energy, and effort. And Isaac brought all of that last night, which was fantastic to see. He was attacking, playmaking, dishing. He looked great out there. And I mean... here's what he said. I know I put in a lot of work, every day. So just taking my shots, I work on it every single day. So I knew eventually they were going to start falling. And, just doing what I do best. Attack the rim, playmaking, and just playing defense. And that's what he had to say about his great first half. He had 13 in the first half, which was fantastic. I mean, for a guy that a lot of Cavs fans give a lot of slack for not living up to the top 5 pick that he was, he has the potential to do it. And something I really saw that I really liked last night is that he was engaged offensively. And even when he wasn't getting the ball and all that stuff, he was very engaged offensively. He knew where the ball was. He knew where he had to be. And in previous games, it felt like, not that his teammates were looking him off, but it was like instead of making the extra pass, they were taking the extra pass they got and just spotting up and shooting rather than making that second extra pass to Okoro in the corner where he could get his shot. And for a young player, I think that might have been tough for him to find a way to stay engaged when he wasn't touching the ball as much. So that's a credit to the team as a whole, moving the ball last night, and to Okoro, because there were plays where he was open and the ball just didn't find him for whatever reason, and he stayed engaged, unlike other nights where he lost that engagement. And the thing about him is I feel like when he loses that engagement offensively, it really kills his defense as well, because he feels like he doesn't have as much of an effect on the game. So that was great to see. A lot of high intensity and energy in that game last night, which I loved, and consistently too. That's the most important thing, because you can come and you can tell me, oh, no Jimmy, no Hero, no this guy, that guy, whatever. The whole laundry list of guys the Heat had out. I don't care, because the one thing that's been killing this Cavaliers team so far this season are these Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde moments where they look great in spurts, but then they get what JB called the fat cat syndrome. They're like, oh, look at that spurt. Oh, we just put 10 on them in a row. And then they just sit back, the fat lazy cat, let up another 10. Like, they let up a 10. So that 10-0 run they went on meant nothing. But it was great to see. We went on a 10-3 run to start the quarter, and the Heat called a timeout with 8:27 left. The great thing about that 10-3 run is actually that the first score of the second quarter was a 3 by the Heat. I included the 3 because, I like to keep track of the score and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, well, let me continue with the run, because the run continued. It ended up being a 21-5 run for the quarter, but a 21-2 run straight up, because, all our runs started after they made that first 3. But something I was just talking about, the fat cat syndrome, was something that showed right here. Was the Heat had an 8-0 run right after our 23-5 run. And yes, that's the whole quarter. That includes that first 3, which scared me a little bit. But they rebounded nicely, and they put it on them after that. And something else I noticed in this quarter was that JB has been talking about staggering minutes with Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, so we always have them on the floor. And it only makes sense that he would do the same with Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, because we always need one of those guys on the floor. But the thing I found really interesting was that he seemed to keep Donovan Mitchell and Jarrett Allen together and Darius Garland and Evan Mobley together. And the reason I think he did this is because Donovan Mitchell has a lot more experience playing with a big man like Jarrett Allen than he does playing with a big man like Evan Mobley. Evan Mobley's a unicorn. He can do everything, and that's not to take anything away from Jarrett offensively. Jarrett is absolutely fantastic for us. I mean, he only had 8 points last night, but it was a rout and he didn't play much, so you can't really blame him for that. And Jarrett plays offensively a lot like Rudy Gobert in the fact that he sets great screens. He runs the pick and roll really well. You know exactly what you're getting when you're Donovan Mitchell when you're playing with Jarrett Allen. And that's not saying that Darius Garland can't play with Jarrett Allen or Donovan Mitchell can't play with Evan Mobley. We saw it last night where those two guys had great assists to those guys, or the big men were dishing out to them at the three-point line. It's just that their fits in those two groups together are better for the team, because I feel like Darius Garland knows how to find Evan Mobley in his spots better than Donovan Mitchell, and I feel like that's what was hurting Evan earlier in the year, especially when DG wasn't playing, and why Evan Mobley looks like a completely different player now than he did when we were on that win streak, when everything seemed like it was going great, and Evan Mobley just wasn't getting the stats. Now he was looking a lot better with DG on the floor with him. I mean, if you look at the stats at the end of the first half, DG had 16 points and 6 assists. Evan Mobley had 13 points and 7 rebounds. And Okoro had 13 points and 2 rebounds. It speaks to how offensively engaged Okoro was, how Darius Garland was orchestrating the offense, and how Ev was critical in us taking down that zone. Right? He was setting up right in the middle of that zone. He'd get the ball. The zone would collapse on him. He would either find a nice, easy shot to take, or he would dish out to the open guy. He always found the open guy, which was great to see, which I loved to see. And JB had this to say about Evan Mobley. We haven't even scratched the surface of the things we're going to see him do. But when you have that type of footwork and balance, that length and size to still be under control all the time and never get sped up, you know what I mean? It's impressive. And if you saw some of the stuff he did in practice and his workouts, that bag is full. And that is something that as a Cavs fan is very exciting to hear, because we see glimpses of Evan Mobley's bag, He doesn't get to ball handle that often. And I feel like they're not trying to put too much on him too quickly because of how important a player he is for this team. I think they want to bring him along slowly, take their time, make sure he's getting the basics down before they try to make him just do everything, because he has superstar potential. And no point in wasting that because you want to force him to be that guy now that he's going to be a year, 2-3 years from now. So that was great. And moving on to the second half. The second half was wonderful. It just kept... Our offense was firing on all cylinders, and the ball movement was fantastic. But it all started at the defensive end. The entire team, even when there was a silly turnover, which silly turnovers have been biting us in the butt a lot. That's something we definitely need to nip in the bud. But seeing how the team responded after silly turnovers was great to see. Hustling back on defense, completely engaged on the defensive end and the offensive end. That's the thing. I feel like a lot of times in the NBA, you'll see players get disengaged on one side of the floor, and then they're not fully into the game. But I feel like what this team is doing now is getting back to their identity, which is defense, and they're using that defense to power their offense and getting great transition buckets. And Okoro had something to say about this when he was talking about, let's see, where is it? It's definitely on this side. He was talking about the 5-game skid and what they did to change things to get these last 2 wins in a row. So he said that during this meeting they were talking about, and now what he said, basically our defense was, bad through those last 5 games. So we just decided to lock in more on our defensive side, and we knew our identity on this team is our defense. So that'll lead to more on offense. And that's what he said, change the 5-game skid, and I couldn't agree more. You look at how, I had a lot of complaints about that Hornets game. It should have been more like the Heat game last night than what it ended up being, which was a double overtime thriller. But if you look at that second overtime, we went on a 12-0 run to finish that game, and that was all because of our defense. And if you look at last night's game, a lot of our offense was powered by our defense, easy transition buckets, great passing off of turnovers, great outlet passing just off of rebounds. And it was great to see. And then something I absolutely loved about watching the second half is, I'm going to read this off for you. It's, I'll get to that later. We got our largest lead of the night in the third quarter was 23. I wasn't keeping track of it earlier, so 23 is the largest lead of the night with 4:55 left in the third. Then the new high lead of the night was 26. I guess I didn't get that how much time was left, but that was in between the new high of 28, which was with 1 minute and 8 seconds left, and the 23, which was 4 minutes and 55 seconds left in the third. But then you see with 49 seconds left, they pushed it to 30. With 26 seconds left, they pushed it to 31. Then in the fourth quarter, they pushed it to 32 with 9:55 left. And that was the highest it was for the rest of the game because Raul and Robin checked in with 7:35, I believe, left in the game, or 7:53 left in the game. I mean, it was great to see that consistent energy and effort because this is the same team who was up 10 with 45 seconds left against the Hornets and just lost all that energy and effort and thought it was over and choked a 10-point lead in 45 seconds to go to overtime. So to see that energy and effort, it felt like it was increasing, it's kind of like the confidence they were getting from the beatdown was getting them their energy and effort up more. So it was great to see that, especially because as I said before, the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in previous games. And something cool I saw in the third quarter, completely irrelevant to how the game went, but it was fun because during one of the TV timeouts, they started playing Sweet Caroline in Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. And when they cut back to the game, I saw Jared Allen and Jetty Osmond singing a little Sweet Caroline together, which was fun. That was with 3 minutes left in the third. And something else I have written here was that Lamar has been playing great defense on guys bigger than him. And when you talk about how we lost Lauri Markkanen, well, we traded him, not lost him, and his value to our team, one of the things that was very valuable to our team with him was that when we got in situations where we would switch, Lowry could switch with Evan Mobley or Jared Allen, and he could handle that guy. And Lamar, I feel like he's proven to be able to do that. Like when we finished that game against the Timberwolves that we lost, we finished on that huge run. Lamar was on Cat for most of that run, and he was giving Cat a hard time. And I feel like that's more the energy and the effort he plays with on the defensive end because he's not as big as those guys. I'm not 100% sure how tall he is. I believe he's 6'7", 6'8". But, I mean, you're talking about a 7-footer in Cat. And yesterday he had no problem switching on to Bam. So that's probably why he's starting. And it may be why he continues to start, even with these negatives in the plus minus. And as I said before, when it comes to Lamar, I don't care about the plus minus. I don't think he's a player that the plus minus really favors with the way he plays. I think he's more old school, but he brings the energy and the effort, which is great. And the end of the game was also fun to watch because you saw the offensive ball movement with the reserves was still fantastic. With the lineup was, I think he left Jetty in. Yeah, here it is. Raul, Jetty, Isaiah Mobley, Mamadi Diakite, and Robin Lopez. And there was a little bit in there where the intensity dropped off. But once Isaiah Mobley checked in, it felt like that energy came back and that intensity came back, which was definitely great to see. And the leading stat getters were DG with 25 points, 7 assists. Jetty Osmond, your junkyard dog, with 20 points and 12 rebounds. And Evan Mobley with 15 points and 10 rebounds. And, I mean, I feel like one of the reasons this team bounced back so quickly and so well was because of the energy and in the locker room. Like, here is a quote from Okoro. Just for reference, Okoro and Jetty were interviewed together in the post-game press conference. So they asked Okoro about Jetty's positive attitude, and he said, yeah, Jetty's one annoying person, you know what I mean? And they both started laughing because he was just joking, obviously. He stays positive throughout the locker room. Everybody loves Jetty. I mean, like, there's if we have a bad game or anything like that, like always tell my friends, like there's no way you could come back to our locker room and just be mad because everybody's so positive. So I mean, like, it's just a good time to be around everyone on this team. And that, I mean, that and I like the one they had another interaction because Okoro had answered 2 questions in a row, and they asked the question that where I gave you the quote earlier about what changed in these last 2 wins compared to the 5-game skid. And when they asked that question, Jetty said, "You can go ahead with that." And Okoro said, "I just answered 2 in a row." And Jetty said, "Huh?" And Okoro said, "I just answered 2 in a row." He said, "That's fine." And Okoro said, "Want to do 3 in a row?" And Jetty just said, "Yep." They both had a big smile on their face. It was great to see. I mean, if you look at the stats, it's just, I did this in the last video where I compared the Big Four to the rest, and in that game it was in a big favor of the Big Four, but in this game, the rest definitely stepped up. If you look at it, okay, so we'll start with the points. The Big Four had 61 points. The rest had 52. The Big Four had 21 rebounds. The rest had 28. The Big Four had 19 assists. The rest had 12. The Big Four had 3 steals. The rest had 4. The Big Four had no blocks, which is surprising when you have Evan Mobley and Jared Allen part of that Big Four. And the rest had 1. Jetty had the only block on the team. Junkyard dog. And this is a bad stat, but I think it'll get better over time. The Big Four had 12 turnovers, and the rest had 7. But that just tells you how much the bench and the role players stepped up last night. I mean, the way Jetty played was fantastic. It's like, I think I was talking about this like 2 or 3 videos ago where Jetty stopped playing the free-flowing basketball and he just started to throw his hands up a lot and be like, "Oh, I got fouled. Oh, I got fouled." And I feel like Jetty Osman is a great barometer for how this team is playing, because when he is comfortable and he's playing free-flowing basketball, that is what the team is doing. When he's trying to force the issue and he's throwing up his hands like, "Oh, I just got fouled," and he's dropping the ball, the team isn't playing well. So, I mean, it's definitely great to see him playing well. He definitely deserved that junkyard dog chain. And he was talking about whether or not him and JB had a conversation about Kevin fracturing his thumb and how he would have to step up. And he said, "We did not have a conversation, but, like I said, whenever I get on the court, I don't think anybody has to tell me, like, go out and do your thing, because, I'll always do my best." He also said, "I'll just be ready every time my number is called." And what he said about his big night on the glass, because he had 12 rebounds, 4 of them offensive rebounds, was, "I was being more aggressive, trying to get myself into the game early," which he did a great job of doing. I mean, he made a huge difference on both sides of the ball. And, I mean, I felt like we kind of lost that the last few games, I can't lie. For a little bit there, I was just assuming Jetty got off that hot start because of his wedding and Eurobasket, and that he was just coming off all those good emotions and good times, and he was just ready to go, and that just sort of wavered at this point. But, I mean, I hope he keeps this up. But what he had to say on the importance of the win last night was, "I think we kind of start getting to that point where we're playing again, good basketball. Especially, we needed this win because we're going to have Atlanta tomorrow here, and obviously everybody knows what happened last year. So I think that's going to be a very special game for us, and we're going to have to be ready and prove that actually we belong in the playoffs. So I think we're going to have to everybody's going to have to be ready and step up in the right direction and, try to win the game tomorrow." And don't make fun of Jetty. He's got broken English, but it's not his first language. He speaks Turkish, so cut him some slack. But he's absolutely right. Huge game against Atlanta in 46 minutes. So, yeah, I'm cutting this pretty close here. But I would definitely want to see the team keep up that same energy from last night tonight against the team that ended our season last year. So, I mean, tonight's an important game to see how we're going to respond, especially with everything that happened last year. And let's see. Something JB said about the team was they had the right mindset. I thought the group did. I think there's been a lot of learning done as a team and individually, and guys are figuring out and understanding how they can help. Now, I think this quote is kind of focused on a guy like Isaac Okoro or Lamar Stevens, who Lamar Stevens is still trying to settle into his role as a starter, and Okoro is starting to settle into his role off the bench. I mean, at least last night he settled into his role very well off the bench. And if he can keep that same aggressive energy and stay engaged offensively in every game, that would be huge for us. And something else JB said about how guys stepped up while Donovan Mitchell struggled. Donovan Mitchell had 13 points last night. Jared Allen had 8. Cedi Osman finished with 20. So he had one less point than 2 of the big 4. So what JB had to say about that was, we'll go as far as our team takes us. And, that's what we keep, harping on. That's what we believe in. That's what the Stars believe in. But, we're not guys on an island by themselves. So we are a team. And I think that's more than just how the team plays basketball, because this team is very close-knit. Even if you go back to the summer where they all went to Vanderbilt with DG and had their little week there, and Kevin Love was so heartbroken that he couldn't go, and it happened at the perfect time because we just got Donovan Mitchell and he was able to go. But this team is close on and off the court. I mean, DG and Evan Mobley went to Turks and Caicos together, and I'm pretty sure Dylan Windler was there too. Hopefully that man's back soon. Oh yeah, also I don't know if it's today or yesterday, but happy birthday to Drippy Dean Wade. I know that's random and out of nowhere, but Drippy Dean. But something JB said about Cedi and his fluctuating role, because if you look, the other night, Cedi played 7 minutes and 24 or 34 seconds against the Hornets, and last night against the Heat, he played 37 minutes and 0 seconds. So what he said was, he's a spark plug. He's got a strange energy to him that, the guys love, the fans love. But, he just wants to be part of it. And, I think I've seen a difference in his approach this year in down moments. And I think that's growth for him, accepting and understanding who you are, sacrificing yourself for something greater than yourself. But when your number is called, always being prepared. And I mean, what else can you say about Cedi Osman? That man has been here since LeBron has been here, and to see how much he's grown since 2018 has been fantastic. I mean, could you even imagine him scoring 20 points in a game in 2018? I couldn't back then. Man barely got minutes off the bench. Maybe we should have played him more in that finals game, huh? Or in the finals, not finals game. It did feel like one game, though, after whatever. We're not going to talk about that. But something Okoro had to say, sticking with that same theme of team, about how guys stepped up with Donovan Mitchell struggling. I don't know why the media was so stuck on Donovan struggling. I mean, I'm not trying to hate on Jarrett, but Jared Allen also had 8 points. I know Jarrett was more efficient, but whatever. What Okoro had to say was, with our team, when somebody's having a bad night, someone's always stepping up. With this team, we know how to move the ball around, play make for each other, make the right plays for each other. So we just keep doing those, we're going to make the shots. And he's right. I mean, the way we were moving the ball last night was fantastic. We absolutely shredded the Heat's zone. The way we were able to pass into Evan Mobley and have the zone converge on him, and he was making the the right play consistently, dishing out to the right guy who would either be able to take the shot or make that extra pass to a guy who would either take the shot and then or make the extra pass, and on and on and on. So, I mean, there's definitely some sloppy moments and some sloppy plays in that game, but I mean, what can you say? And going back to Jetty, what Okoro had to say about the energy, that weird energy that JB was talking about, the energy he brings to the team was, I mean, it's electric. I mean, he's hot. When he's hot, he's hot. So, I mean, like, you see in the second half, like, he hit 1-3, then he just hit, like, 3 in a row. And then, it's contagious. He starts getting steals, making plays for others. So when he brings the energy, it's just contagious. And, I mean, what else can you say? Like, I can feel it when I'm sitting here. I'm from Jersey, and I can feel it from here, that energy that Jetty brings, Fires up us fans, too, for sure. I mean, Jetty is the definition of a spark plug in every way. Like, we could be down 7, and he could come in the game and make a 3, and the momentum will swing in our way, especially if we're at home, because the crowd will erupt every time. And it's just great to see. It's just great to see. And something Jetty said about that fluctuating role that JB was talking about was just being positive. And, I mean, really, that's the only thing I can control. That's why, I got to be positive with myself and work every day to get better. And for a guy who played 7.5 minutes in that Hornets game and didn't take a shot, he had a 0% usage rate. I checked these stats when I was making my Hornets video. He had a 0% usage rate in that game. So to go from 7:24 to 37 minutes and to have the impact he had last night and to be the junkyard dog, it shows you how much not only he cares about this team, but how much work he's been putting in and how much attention to detail, because he noticed what happened in that Hornets game. I bet he noticed that 0% usage rate. I bet you he noticed that 0 for 0 on field goal attempts. And that's why, like, I said his quote from before about the rebounds. He was trying to get himself going there. That's why he got 4 offensive rebounds. He even said in the press conference, like, we took 37 threes, and he said that usually he feels like the team would make more. But when you're taking that many threes, it's inevitable that there's going to be some offensive rebounds that bounce out. And he was able to get those, which is huge for us. Second possessions and stuff like that. And so we shot 35.1% from 3, which it could be better, but I'm not going to complain about that. 35% is a good clip to shoot at for a team. And we shot 53% from the floor, and that's fine. And something that's interesting is the plus minuses that, I mean, they're fantastic. I mean, plus 39 for Jetty, who, as I told you, played 37 minutes. Plus 26 for Okoro, who I don't even think scored a point in the second half, yet still found a way to stay engaged offensively and make the right play anytime he touched the ball. And it also seemed like he hurt his left arm at one point in the game. He was grabbing it, so that maybe that's why he became more of a willing passer than a willing shooter. But that remains to be seen. I don't know about that. And that was in 29 minutes and 8 seconds for Okoro. LeVert was plus 22 in 14 minutes and 17 seconds. LeVert didn't play the second half. He rolled his ankle. And JB said there was no swelling, but he wasn't sure whether or not he was going to play tonight against the Hawks. Now, that's probably official now because it is 6:23 and the game is in 37 minutes. So there's probably some official word about whether Caris LeVert is playing tonight out. But since I've been filming this video, I am not sure whether or not Caris LeVert is playing tonight. Evan Mobley was plus 15 in 30 minutes. Donovan Mitchell was plus 15 in 26 minutes and 47 seconds. Jared Allen was plus 13 in 27 minutes and 10 seconds. Darius Garland was plus 12 in 27 minutes and 53 seconds. And something great about the big four was that only one of them played 30 minutes. on a night where we have a game the next day, on a back-to-back night, playing the Heat yesterday, playing the Hawks in 37 minutes today. It's fantastic to see that our guys didn't have to play too much, and it's because of how the rest played. And I'll go into comparing this to the Hornets game in a bit, but let's just finish up here. Isaiah Mobley was +4 in 4 minutes and 28 seconds. And like I said earlier, he was the one when we had the reserve lineup in. When he came in, that brought the energy of the reserve lineup up. And you can see that in these numbers because Mamadi Diakite was plus or minus nothing. He was plus or minus 0 in 5 minutes and 31 seconds. Raul Neto was -4 in 7 minutes and 53 seconds. Robin Lopez was -4 in 7 minutes and 53 seconds. And like I was talking about before, Lamar Stevens was -8 in 22 minutes flat. But, I mean, that was really cool to see. It felt like, I don't know what about Isaiah coming into the game got that unit to pick up the energy and intensity. But, I mean, when that team came in, they kind of just sat back and they were like, yeah, we're up 32, It's the end of the game. And the Heat, like I told you, had that laundry list of injuries. So they didn't really put in, like, a true reserve lineup. They didn't. So, I mean, their reserves had to play, like, a lot of minutes. So they were very engaged. And something about Isaiah coming in lit a fire under that reserve unit, which was great to see. I really enjoyed seeing that. And I feel like Raul and Robin Lopez would have finished with worse than a -4 if Isaiah didn't check in. So that was cool to see. I mean, not really an important stat in the overall grand scheme of the game because those guys could have finished with a -10 and we still would have won. But still. Now, something I want to do before we finish up here is to compare the Big Four versus the rest to the Hornets game because the difference is staggering and it shows how important our depth really is and why that Hornets game, like I said in that last video, shouldn't have gone on as long as it did. So if you compare the Big Four to the rest in points, like I said already, against the Heat, the Big Four had 61 and the rest had 52. Against the Hornets, the Big Four had 116 and the rest had 16. 16. The Big Four outscored the rest by 100 against the Hornets. And I feel like that was a little bit of chemistry, a little bit of the Big Four holding onto the ball too much, getting the other guys that were in a little disengaged from the offensive end of the floor. But, I mean, you look at the rebounds, too. The Big Four had 21, the rest had 28 against the Heat. Against the Hornets, the Big Four had 35 rebounds and the rest had 16, over doubling them in rebounds. And yes, I know, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, the Big Four honestly should be winning the rebound battle with the rest every night. But I'm not going to complain when the rest wins because it shows the intensity, energy, and effort that group is bringing to the floor. And then you go to the assists. 19 for the Big Four, 12 for the rest against the Heat. And against the Hornets, another 19 for the Big Four, but only 6 assists for the rest. And what that tells me is that the rest, when they're getting the ball, are trying to take advantage of the opportunity because they're not touching the ball as much. Because in that Hornets game, the ball wasn't moving nearly as well, and it felt like Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, when they were trying to do too much, and then they would get trapped in a situation, and then they would try to pass, and they were thinking too much, which would lead to a lot of silly turnovers. So that's what I think about that. And then you look at the blocks. The Big Four had 0, the rest had 1, which is kind of an anomaly in terms of Cavs basketball. We usually get more blocks than that. And in the Cavs-Hornets game, the Big Four had 8 blocks, and the rest had 1. And, I mean, the rest kept it up. I don't know where the Big Four's 8 blocks went. But, no, all jokes aside, Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen are both top 5 in the league in contests, so I can't complain that the Big Four had no blocks in that game. And something both good and bad in terms. Oh wait, no, we still have to do steals. Sorry about that. Against the Heat, the Big Four had 3 steals and the rest had 4. Now in the Cavs Hornets game, the team still had 7 steals, but the Big Four had 7 of them and the rest had none. So, I mean, I think steals are a great stat to show you the energy, intensity, and effort. And I know I keep using those 3 words, but they're very, very important to the way the Cavs play basketball. So, I mean, when the rest is bringing that energy, intensity, and effort, it makes us a very, very hard team to deal with. I mean, Donovan Mitchell wasn't shooting well last night. He wasn't in a groove. Jared Allen had 8 points. Those guys had 21. Like DG and Evan Mobley had 40. Those 2 had 21. And we still won by 26. We had our Big Four average like 15.25 points each. And we won by 26. And that's not usually going to happen for us if the bench is going to play like it did against the Hornets. If our Big Four scores 60 in every game this season and our rest scores 16 points like they did against the Hornets, we're going to lose every game. I mean, yes, that's not going to happen. We're not going to score 72 points in every game. But just as an example, like we would go 0-82. No matter how much energy, intensity, and effort you have on the defensive end, you do need to score. So, I mean, it's great that the rest was getting more involved offensively than they had in that Hornets game. And, I mean, this is a young team, so it took some time to get the ball moving as well as it should, even though the ball was moving really well to start this season. Might have been some beginner's luck more than anything. But I also feel like another part of it was just like DG went down the first game, and then it was kind of like Donovan's team, basically. And then DG came back, and now we're starting to work out the kinks that we should have been working out in those first 9 games. But you can't complain about that. And I didn't finish my Big Four versus rest comparisons. So I'm going to start with the Hornets game for this last one, the turnovers. The Big Four had 17 turnovers in that game. I believe 14 of them were from DG and Don, and the rest had 2. And turnovers are a stat that it doesn't only tell you about silly turnovers. It also shows you how much a person is touching the ball because, I mean, in layman's terms, you have to be holding the ball to turn it over. You have to have it to turn it over. You know? You can't get a turnover because somebody else threw it to the other team. So, as I just said, it was 17-2 in the Hornets game, and it was still 19 turnovers in this game against the Heat, which that number does need to come down. But the Big Four had 12, and the rest had 7. And I think that's a positive stat. I think it's a good thing that the turnovers went up for the rest because just like how the points and the assists show, they were touching the ball more. They're getting more involved. And, I mean, I'm not going to call the Big Four ball hogs for the way the Hornets game went. I think it's more about learning and chemistry and moving the ball more fluidly than anything else. But, I mean, it's just that the rest wasn't touching the ball as much in that game. And hopefully this continues. Huge game against the Hawks tonight. I mean, I really want this one back because it sucked missing the playoffs like that. Now, positive side of us losing that game to the Hawks, if you want to look at it that way, is we don't get Donovan Mitchell if we win that game because that pick that was Ochai Agbaji, which was part of the trade for Donovan Mitchell, would have went to the Pacers because that was a lottery-protected pick. And thank God Kobe Altman put that lottery protection on it because he could have said, oh, we're a top 3 seed in the East right now. Why do we need lottery protection? But, you know, Master GM Kobe Altman, always thinking ahead. But I mean, at the end of the day, about this Cavs Heat game, great team game. That's the most important thing, because if I was to compare the Cavs to any team in NBA history, it would probably be to those 04 Pistons. Now, I know they don't play the same, and I know our guys aren't exactly the same as theirs. But I make that comparison because our team plays like theirs in terms of the 5 fingers make a glove sort of way, in terms of all 5, whoever's on the floor, comes together and works together, and they win as a team. They don't win because of one guy. And, I mean, their identity, that Pistons team, is on the defensive end, like ours. So I feel like we're a modern-day version of that team. And if we want to do what they did, which they won a championship, they made it to, I believe, 6 straight conference finals, including when they won it all. It might have been 5 or 4. I'm not exactly sure, to be completely honest. But if we can play like a team, we are arguably the most dangerous team in the East, especially when you include the fact that we haven't even scratched the surface on what Evan Mobley can do, and us as fans haven't gotten as great of an opportunity as JB and the Cavs to see that bag that they've been talking about that Evan Mobley has. So, you know, hopefully up and up. Hopefully in 24 minutes we get this win against the Hawks. But until then, keep scrapping like a bunch of junkyard dogs.